What's going on, family? I'm Scrapbook Boxing, Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuffs series. I want to continue to examine 100 years of World Championship fights. And in this series, it is designed to cover all nationalities, all races, all countries that were involved in championship fights, whether they were contenders or even champions themselves. And I think so far we have done that. But we're in February. And I have to recognize black fighters, as I always do Black History Month. And I've covered a lot of black fighters in this series. And I will through the course of this series. As we look at Georgie Benton, Amo Griffith, Don Jordan, Benny Kid Perrette, Muhammad Ali, Smoking Joe Frazier, George Foreman. I'd like to get as far as Evander Holyfield and Mike Tyson and Roy Jones and Bernard Executioner Hopkins if I can. And I talked about Charley Burley in this series. But one particular fight that I want to talk about, and we'll start it out with Charley Burley and Oakland Billy Smith. These two men would get it on April 24th, 1946. And they were both California state light heavyweight champions. Charley Burley would defeat Jack Chase. Jack Chase would defeat Watkins Jones. But in this particular fight, the referee was Toby Irving. They fought at the Oakland Auditorium in California. In Oakland, Billy Smith was 25 years old. He stood 6 foot. He walked into the ring with a record of 30 wins, 12 losses, 3 draws, and 14 knockouts. Charley Burley was 28 years old. He stood 5 foot 9 inches. He had a 75-inch reach. Walked into the ring with a record of 74 wins, 10 losses, 2 draws, and 46 knockouts. Now, I met Charley Burley, and that's why this fight and this story means a great deal to me. Because I had a conversation with Charley Burley, and we went over the Oakland Billy Smith fight. Now, first of all, who was Oakland Billy Smith? He's to your left. They called him Boardwalk. He was born January 1st, 1921 in Oakland, California. He died in Atlantic City, New Jersey. He was a light heavyweight champion of California. Fought from 1941 to 1955. He got a total bout career of 89 fights, 58 wins, 24 losses, 33 knockouts. He was stopped 9 times and had 4 draws. Now, you have fighters out there such as Watson Jones. He would face him February 16th and September 10th, 1942. He lost both those fights to Jones. May 31st, June 19th, 1945. He would win 2 fights. Being there with Aaron Little Tiger Wade. August 26th, August 28th, 1942. Face him November 10th, 1942. And lose 3 times. We also had Jack Chase. Be in the ring with him October 9th, 1944. January 3rd, 1945. Win 1 and lose 1. June 9th, 1947. You had Coco Kid. Herbert Lloyd Hardwood. November 24th, 1944. He had a winning record of 162 fights, 43 losses, 9 draws. We would face him at the Civic Center. We would face Charley Burley October 8th, 1945, April 24th, 1946. Be in the ring with Buddy Millard. Buddy Millard was another very good fighter. November 21st, 1945, January 15th, 1946, he would face Buddy Millard. Kenny Watkins, August 29th, September 25th, 1945. Lloyd Marshall, he would defeat him. Jimmy Bivens, he would lose to Jimmy Bivens. Ezzard Charles, Archie Moore, who he would lose to. Bob Satterfield, he would lose to, and Clarence Henry. But he also been in the ring with Burt Lytell, Billy Noby, Johnny Holman, Paul Andrews, and Willie Beacom. All good names on the resume of Oakland Billy Smith. Phenomenal fighter he was. I want to take a look at the fight between Charley Burley and Oakland Billy Smith. April 24th, 1946. Now we're going to look at Charley Burley, who weighed 160.5 pounds, and Oakland Billy Smith, as you can see here, weighing 172 pounds. Now Oakland Billy Smith is to your right, and Charley Burley is to your left. Charley Burley, I have ranked number 2 as the greatest black murderous road fighter. And I have Holman Williams ranked number 1. Coco Kid ranked number 2. I have Coco Kid, the greatest Puerto Rican fighter in boxing history. Now, as you can see here, Oakland Billy Smith bouncing around to your left. Charley Burley has his back to you at this point. And if you look at the little tricks that Charley Burley is doing, rolling his shoulders, he's bent to the side. He's shooting right-hand leads at that time that was unacceptable. Charley Burley had the moves. He is to your, well, he has his back to you right now. The reason why most people rank him one of the greatest fighters is because of what he's doing. He had a very high IQ. Look at that beautiful head movement. Billy Smith, as quiet as it's kept, is a phenomenal, well-schooled technical fighter. If you look at the shifting of his body, his feinting, and it looks like he's swinging wildly, it's just because of the movement and the defensive skills of Charley Burley. Now, Charley Burley keeps Oakland Billy Smith at the range that he wants him to be at. Keeps with the jab, his foot movement, and his head movement. Now, I told you once before about an Archie Moore fight. And I also explained to you once before about a Joe Walcott and Ezzard Charles fight. Charles was having problems with Walcott, especially in their first fight, because Walcott was consistently moving his hands, his body, his head, never gave him a complete target to hit. And this is what Charley Burley is doing to Oakland Billy Smith. He ties him up on the inside. He hits him on the opposite side of the referee. Takes advantage of his full minute. He gets up and he establishes where he wants to be in the ring. As you can see, he feints, he jabs. He doesn't exactly want to hit Oakland Billy Smith. He wants Billy Smith to commit himself. Billy Smith fully understands that. And that's why you see the cat and mouse game going on. Very good jab by Charley Burley. Every once in a while, he has to commit to an offensive move because he needs Billy Smith to commit himself. Right now, he's basically playing chess. Look at those feints by Charley Burley. Very good overhand right. Billy Smith, look at his hands. Perfect position. But he's not moving his hands enough at the times that he should because of the defensive skills. Look at the beautiful defensive moves by Charley Burley. So you see a little bit of Pernell Whitaker. You see Roy Jones. Look at that outside body shot. You see a little of Michael Nunn. And I always said Michael Nunn reminds me more of Charley Burley than some of the other defensive wizards and offensive wizards that we've seen. He reminds me more of Michael Nunn. Once again, Charley Burley is to your left and Oakland Billy Smith is to your right. Oakland Billy Smith was the California State Light Heavyweight Champion. Charley Burley was as well. Charley Burley defeated Jack Chase, Little Joe Louis, for that crown. Charley Burley would also become the colored middleweight champion. Very good body shot by Charley Burley. Now, Charley Burley first became the colored welterweight champion when he defeated Coco Kid in 1938. Nice feints by Charley Burley. Once again, what you can see Charley Burley doing, he's trying to get Oakland Billy Smith to commit himself. So he's basically what we call jiving right now. This is what Pernell Whitaker did a lot. Kind of taunting and playing with his opponent, just enough to get him to open up because of the high guard of Oakland Billy Smith. Oh, very good 1-2 attempt by Billy Smith. Like I said, Billy Smith was a very good, well-schooled technical fighter. But Charley Burley, you can see the mastery in him. He's just taking his time and trying to get Billy Smith to commit himself. We're in round number 4. Burley comes right back out. And this time, Oakland Billy Smith goes right to Charley Burley. Very important move for Billy Smith. Oh, very good hook off the jab by Charley Burley. Now, that was a little too wide. Of a left hook to the body by Charley Burley on my teaching. But because of his speed, he can get away with that. If you notice, Charley Burley grabs the arms of both Billy Smith when his back is against the ropes. That's important to do. Very quick movement by Charley Burley. If you notice how he rolls his shoulders on the outside. Now, this is something, a page out of Tony Canzoneri. Tony Canzoneri did this a lot as well. It wasn't too odd to see this, but with Charley Burley, he had the entire package. He could do it all. Very good counter right hand by Charley Burley. We're at round number 5. Now, Burley looks like he's starting to open up a little bit, as he should. We're halfway through the round, or halfway through the fight, I should say. And Burley is now starting to taunt Billy Smith a little bit more. He's more offensive. He realizes he has to score more points at this point in time. He can't wait for Billy Smith to try and commit himself. He has to make that happen. And that's what he's doing right now. Oh, almost got caught. He swung an overhand right, but Billy Smith caught him with a short right hand. Once you make your opponent miss, you have to make him pay. Because you have to get him to understand that he's not in there with a pushover. Otherwise, he'll try and walk over you. You don't want to make him punch shy, but at the same time, you do want him to respect you. Good overhand right. And what it also does is it lets the judges know that you have ring generalship, you are in control, and it's a defensive skill as well. So you'll get points for that. Once again, Charley Burley is to your right, and Oakland Billy Smith is to your left. Now, there's a lot happening right now. Charley Burley is now more on the offense than he was before. He was on the defense before. And he realized he has to pick up the pace at this point in time. Because once again, Oakland Billy Smith is a well-school educated fighter. As he goes right at Charley Burley. Now, Charley Burley comes out, but he immediately goes on the defensive because of Oakland Billy Smith. You got to understand, Oakland Billy Smith is a taller man. And has a very good defense. And he has a lot of experience as well. Two great fighters. Charley Burley and Oakland Billy Smith. May 21st, May 26th. Archie Moore defeats and knocks out Lloyd Marshall. 10 rounds. Baltimore, Maryland, and Cleveland, Ohio. Lloyd Marshall is to your right. And Archie Moore is to your left. Now, during this time, you had great fighters. And I mean great fighters, such as Ezzard Charles, Holman Williams. You had Coco Kid. You had Jimmy Bivens. All these fighters were in the mix. Bobby Zanzer. Real good fighters. And they had to get past each other because they didn't get the opportunities outside of themselves. And that was just unfortunate, the way boxing was. My dad explained to me many times how these fighters had to go out of town, and there were certain states, especially in the South, they didn't have a locker room. They would have to change in a closet where they had mop buckets, things like that. And they would have to pay for their towel. They would have to pay for the fight doctor that was there. Promoter didn't pay for it. Came out of their purse. And there would be times where they would be spit on as they were walking either to or from the ring. So when they went to venues like that, a lot of times they just wanted to leave. So they would hold on to their man, push him off, and go down when they got tagged with a decent punch that was convincing enough. Or just didn't do enough to win the fight. Because of the threats, the stigmas that surrounded them. That has to be pretty frightening when you go down a dark red clay road. And the majority of the fight fans don't look like you. And they're cheering for the other man. You see shotguns in the back of pickup trucks. Just doesn't feel right. I can imagine. So a lot of these fighters either just took an L or was not given a W. And of course, that's not all cases. It's not. But it happened. Because if you look at the skill set of a lot of these fighters, some of the losses they had, you question it. Let's take a look. Ezzard Charles and Lloyd Marshall. Now, July 29th, 1946, Ezzard Charles and Lloyd Marshall would meet up. It would be a 6-round knockout. As you can see here, Ezzard Charles is to your left. That's to your right, excuse me, and Lloyd Marshall's to your left. Ezzard Charles shoves off Lloyd Marshall. This is the inexperience of the younger fighter. Ezzard Charles was growing into a light heavyweight. He was actually a middleweight growing into a light heavyweight. And he's shoving off a light heavyweight / heavyweight. He goes down from a punch thrown by Lloyd Marshall. What Charles needs to establish is his jab. He needs to stay on the outside, try not to slug with Lloyd Marshall. Lloyd Marshall is to your left and Ezzard Charles is to the right. Now you can see the technical skills in Ezzard Charles. Charles once again shoves off Lloyd Marshall. He's a young, energetic young man at this point. Ezzard Charles is to your left and Lloyd Marshall is to your right. Once again, Ezzard Charles shoves off Lloyd Marshall. Now Charles must jab. He has to jab Lloyd Marshall. Beautiful jab by him. He has to continue because Lloyd Marshall's getting a little too close to Ezzard Charles. He's a stronger man. Very good hook by Ezzard Charles. Once he gets out of the clinch, he needs to reestablish himself and his distance with the jab. Now Charles cannot be getting hit on the inside when these two men are close to one another like that. Because Lloyd Marshall will break Ezzard Charles down. This is not his natural weight. Now here you have Ezzard Charles and Joe Walcott. Now we looked at Charles and Walcott during the course of this series. Now, this fight took place at Chicago's Comiskey Park, June 22nd, 1949. Ezzard Charles is to your right and Joe Walcott is to your left.
Walcott desperately holds Charles's arms by the elbows in the clinches because Charles has been...
Charles is to your right. Look at that jab. And Walcott is facing you at this point in time. Now Walcott has steady movement. He always had that. And this is what gave a lot of his opponents problems.
Charles was charging forward and you could see his body vibrate when that...
And he's not running around. He's right in front of his man, but he consistently moves his upper body, torso. His hands are consistently moving. And he has very good defense. Just Jersey Joe Walcott. It just confuses Ezzard Charles.
Walcott doesn't counter as fast as he...
And this is what Charles had to contend with. These type of fighters. Very skilled. Had natural attributes during his day.
All those motions mean very little because Charles pays no attention to them.
And Charles would wind up winning the NBA version of the heavyweight championship belt. Now, the fight in 49 between Walcott and Charles was for the vacant NBA heavyweight championship belt that was vacated by Joe Louis. What you're looking at here is why Ezzard Charles would eventually be recognized as the world heavyweight champion. Now, here you have Ezzard Charles. You have Lee Savoy in the middle here. And you have Walcott. Now, what happened? Jersey Joe Walcott had a bad experience with Joe Louis in 1947. Most observers, including Ruby Goldstein, who was the referee, thought that Joe Louis lost the fight. So Joe Louis had to give Joe Walcott a return match, because Joe Walcott and his camp were going to go to court. So Joe Louis would knock out Jersey Joe Walcott in the 10th round. Lee Savoy, meanwhile, was recognized by the British Board of Boxing Control, or Boxing Board of Control, that he was champion. So Louis would retire 1949 after he knocked out Joe Walcott in 48. Whereas Charles would get an opportunity to face Walcott in 49 for the vacant belt that Joe Louis would own. It was part of his unified belt, the NBA version of it. And Joe Louis had selected those two men because Walcott, once again, was threatening to file suit because he felt he was robbed in the first fight. Well, when Ezzard Charles would defeat Walcott in 49, no one recognized Ezzard Charles as a true champion. So he fought Joe Louis in Yankee Stadium in 1950 because he felt he would get recognition that way. He would defeat Joe Louis, but it wasn't until 1951 when Joe Louis would face Lee Savoy. And he would defeat Lee Savoy. And since Ezzard Charles defeated Joe Louis, they now recognize Ezzard Charles as a lineal and unified world heavyweight champion. Well, Joe Walcott would knock out Ezzard Charles in 51. Louis never got that opportunity to face Ezzard Charles because Charles was knocked out by Walcott. Walcott said he would never give Joe Louis another opportunity after he was champion because he felt he was railroaded. He didn't want to do business with Joe Louis's camp. So he had Rocky Marciano, or I should say Joe Louis, face Rocky Marciano. And if Joe Louis would have beat Rocky Marciano, he claimed he would give Joe Louis a shot. That didn't happen because Rocky Marciano knocked out Joe Louis in the 8th round in Madison Square Garden. So now Walcott was stuck with Rocky Marciano. He was trying to get rid of Marciano by giving him to Louis. So he got stuck with Marciano anyway. But it was a better purse for him than it would have been for Louis. So that's the case there. Now, I did a tribute to Ezzard Charles in the last video. I have that much respect for Ezzard Charles. Ezzard Charles was a great fighter. Came around at a time when you had great fighters that he had to contend with. And many rank Ezzard Charles as the greatest light heavyweight. I do as well. I have Archie Moore as the greatest light heavyweight champion. But Ezzard Charles defeated Archie Moore 3 times. And he fought him 3 times. So that's why I rate Ezzard Charles ahead of Archie Moore as a light heavyweight. But I can't rate him over Archie Moore as a light heavyweight champion because Ezzard Charles was never a light heavyweight champion. But Ezzard Charles was a phenomenal fighter. And he needs to be recognized. Salute to Ezzard Charles. An outstanding fighter, I might add. He was in the ring with Rocky Marciano. 1954, 2 separate occasions. He was also in the ring with Joe Louis. So let's take a look at Ezzard Charles as he becomes champion.
In color, the new heavyweight champion of the world.
Now, Ezzard Charles and Joe Walcott just completed their bout in 1949 at Kempinski Park.
Waiting now for the judges to make their tally cards.
June 22nd, 1949. We just watched a little bit of that fight a moment ago. Here's the results. A historical moment.
Putting all the lights on now in the park, and here comes the announcer.
Ezzard Charles, 78. Jersey Joe Walcott, 72.
The point system in Illinois.
And why this is important?
Ezzard Charles, 78. Joe Walcott, 72.
Charles is the champion. Because it would be the first time a black heavyweight champion, a black fighter, will become heavyweight champion back-to-back. No matter who won this fight. In this case, it was Ezzard Charles. So Ezzard Charles is the brand new heavyweight champion. But he was only recognized as an NBA heavyweight champion. He wasn't recognized as the world heavyweight champion yet.
He would do everything in his power to make himself really a great champion and a credit to the boxing game.
Now, as you see Don Dunphy looking right at you at the edge of the ringside, that's Don Dunphy. He's going to interview Ezzard Charles. Once again, it's a historic moment
One of Ezzard Charles' handlers
in the African American community. And those who listen on the radio was very excited about this.
The handler, whom they're working on over in the corner, but his handler's up again. Just peeled right over. Well, I see Don Dunphy is in the ring. He's trying to get in there to interview the new champion, Ezzard Charles. So let's switch to the ring and hear what he has to say.
Now, excuse the poor
I think by now Don Dunphy has got enough
sound quality here.
order up there that he can probably get Ezzard Charles on the mic. Charles, Bill, I'm going to try to get the new world heavyweight champion to the world, to the ring. They seem there's utter confusion here. Let's have an interview here, boys, please. We'd like to get an interview.